Hello, I'm Wimsaur of Wimsaur.com, and today I will be discussing the Kybalion and Hermetic philosophy, specifically the fourth principle of the seven principles of the Kybalion. This one is the principle of polarity. Now here's the quote. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. So what does this mean? Well, let's start off with what it's called. Polarity. If we want to look at polarity from an electrical point of view, we would have a positive and a negative polarity. We'd always have both. If you were going to design a circuit, what you would do is you would essentially pick a direction and always go towards the positive or always go to the negative. As long as you're consistent, you can maintain a positive polarity in your view or maintain a negative polarity in your view. Now, honestly, it's been years since college, so I forget which is which. But between the fields of engineering and physics, when they discuss polarity in a circuit, one of them always has the circuit going in the direction of the negative electron, and the other to the positive. So it doesn't really make a difference as long as the math adds up. So if you always are going to do something in terms of mathematics, you would always be adding for the positive, and you'd always be subtracting for the negative, or adding negative numbers, same deal as subtracting. Okay, that was way too ultra technical, but that in itself just kind of shows that in terms of the physical world, the laws of nature, it does not care if you're positive or negative. It absolutely doesn't. One is the same as the other in terms of nature. It really doesn't care. Now you might care, especially when you start to realize that your own negative attitude begets more negative attitude, begets more negative attitude, and so on and so forth, that you actually find that it's easy to maintain that attitude of being negative. The opposite is true. When you stay into a positive attitude and a positive outlook, you tend to stay in that positive. The longer you're in it, you're just in it. It's like a habit. It's like once you picked a direction, you just go there. But let's get back to polarity. It's teaching you have two poles to everything, okay? And a later principle will actually be more specific. In fact, the Hermetic philosophy, instead of saying positive, negative, says male, female, which, again, that's another principle, and we'll get to that. But for right now, just take it at face value that male would be positive and female negative. I'm not talking about negative emotion or positive emotion. We're talking strictly positive, negative. And again, an explanation of those poles specifically to follow. However, this lesson is really to show how similar they are to each other. Part of the statement, or part of the principle, is like and unlike are the same. How can this be? How can positive be negative? How can negative be positive? Well, where does cold begin and where does hot begin on a thermometer? Where's that little magical line that says, now it's hot, now it's cold? Likewise, black and white. It's obvious if you put two colors next to each other, like on a monochromatic white, black and white scale. It's obvious which would be white, which would be black, or which would be darker and which would be lighter. But as you, I guess, increase the brightness of an image or of light, when does it get white? And when is it the brightest? When you go down towards like dark, when is it dark? I mean, when is that point where we finally say now it's dark? This is kind of the point of polarity. Yes, there are these two poles, but there's no magic thermometer that says this is positive, this is negative. At least not in the mental realm. One is always more positive to the other. One is always more negative to the other. Love and hate. Where do we start to draw the line between love, hate, and in a smaller scale, like, dislike? Have you ever loved somebody but not like them? Have you ever hated somebody but still kind of like them, like their personality would still maybe win you over, even though you just knew this person is bad news? It is for you to decide which is which. You and only you can make that decision. No book can tell you this. No other person can tell you this. Only you can decide what is positive and what is negative. Everyone else, well, let's put it this way. Our senses are inherently disconnected from the physical world. Everything we see, everything we hear, taste, there's a time delay from when our sense picks it up to when our brain receives it, and then until we interpret it. Thus, I give you these principles because in a very real way, you are on your own from reality. Yes, you can connect with other people, other beings, other animals, plants, the elements. However, inherently, you are the only judge of what is real and what is not real. And I mean this in all levels. As discussed previously, like correspondences, there are many planes of existence. But in fact, polarity comes in there a little bit. But in all those realms, all the realms of mind are real, just as real as the physical. The physical just happens to be a unique measuring device to say, yes, we can agree that this is real. Because that's like the realest in terms of what we can agree on as, I guess, thinking entities. But the mind is just as real. Okay, that being said, accept nobody else's idea of positive and negative. That brings us to the next phase of this. You can even look at the world as the negative, and I mean that in a creative way. This is sort of a preview of gender for a later episode. Male is the directing force, and that's all. That's all it is. That's what that's what positive male is. It just directs. Think penis. You really can't actually get any more direct than that. The female force is the creative force, or creative form rather, that everything takes, and it is responsible for organizing that form into something. So, think womb. You can't really get more than that, get better descriptions than that, really. That's really how it is for the universe. You have your form, like all the matter, ultimately, and even the mind, and the force. If you want us to call it God, go for it. But the concept of God, or the all, is more of the one. We're talking of two here in terms of polarity. You would be the positive. You can direct that universe, that external force, that negativeness to you. So you can actually look at the polarity as You, everything else. Or, it'd be easier if I just say it like this. Me, everything else. And that is a polarity. Where does me begin and where does the universe begin? What part of me is just a result of everything that the universe has been done unto me? So the universe is also like the masculine, and I would be the feminine, absorbing the universe. So again, that said, where do I begin and where do you begin? Everything I've taken in has affected my personality. And no matter how much I try, and I do succeed to some degree, of separating myself from it, and of actually knowing what is me. Again, where does one end and where does the other begin? That's polarity. Now, another part of that aphorism, of that principle, is that all paradoxes may be reconciled. People love to use examples of violence, but so I'm really no exception. But somebody is killed. Okay, sounds completely. This sounds like evil, right? This sounds, I guess, not good, not constructive, destructive. But what if that person is a psychopath who enjoys murdering other human beings and who is vicious, and no matter what you do to correct their behavior, they're just going to do it anyway if given the chance? Think the Joker from Batman. I mean, let's face it, if he really was alive, he should just be executed. There's really nothing to be done for something of that nature. That would be a good thing. It'd protect people. So now that inherent evil of, killing somebody is not good. This is an example, extreme, but, I mean, the idea is to get the idea across. Not to mention, what if a building is knocked down? I mean knocked down, somebody's hired, like a crew to knock down the building, they're going to put something else up there. Maybe it was like a broken down old building. It was taken away, and now maybe like a pretty villa is put in, or like a nice park, or something that everyone can enjoy, something outside, something beautiful, or even another building that's more useful. That's good. We destroyed, the old as well, the ruined product to bring something good. So in terms of polarity of good and evil, they kind of make each other disappear if you can look at it from every point of view. And you should look at everything from every point of view. No one else is going to do it for you. No, they really will not be doing it for you. Don't fool yourself. Now, this principle manifests on all planes, as we were taught before with the as above, so below. So, I believe it is in this one here. I learned these originally, definitely a good 19 or 20 years ago, something like that. So they start to kind of get mixed up in my mind sometime, because inherently all of these 7 principles are part of the same teaching. I mean, there's a little bit of a circular nature to it, but the more you actually work with it, the more beautiful it becomes. That said, I don't really want to spoil one topic for another, but I will say that, as we were already taught, that these laws are pretty much, universal. Then on every level, these individual laws are also universal. Thus, physically, everything has poles. We know that. Just think of atoms, protons, and also electrons. I'm not going to even bother to go further into, the subatomic world, but just the atomic world, it's right there. Everything is a constant movement between positive protons and negative electrons that essentially create our physical world. So that's the physical world. In the mental world, you also see the phenomenon of polarity between people. Again, one is always positive to the other. One is always negative to the other. There's always a dominant and a submissive in every relationship. There's always a leader and a follower. And depending on how extreme these relationships are carried out, there's always a slave and always a master. Now, that's the mental plane. On the spiritual plane, well, that's something you'll have to kind of discover for yourself. But you'll also find that under the great scheme of things, you too are always submissive to whatever is higher. And that's a good thing. And you're in turn always, dominant to everything that's lower. I mean, just think of how mankind essentially rules this planet over all the other animals. It's another example of it. Well, I don't want to really put you guys to sleep with this. I hope that this has been enough for you to get the idea of the principle of polarity from the Kybalion. If you have any questions, or even if you're interested in a reading, come on over to Wimsaur.com. Thank you, and have a good day, and happy holidays.